Wondering about housing crisis here in Calgary? For quite some time, this issue of housing is complex, with lots of claims and misconceptions floating around. Today, we're going to fact check some of the most common claims made about Calgary housing crisis to separate the fact from fiction. Claim number one: there are more people than homes in Calgary. It's easy to think that Calgary's housing crisis is simply a matter of population outgrowing the available housing. But this isn't entirely true. Over the last 2 decades, Calgary has actually built more homes than the number of new households, even when you take into account the influx of newcomers to the city. This means their theory there should be enough homes for everyone. So why are rents still increasing, and why does it feel like there's a housing shortage? The issue isn't just about quality of homes being built, it's about types of homes being constructed. Developers have focused heavily on building condos and smaller units, which are great for singles or couples but don't meet the needs of larger families or those looking for affordable housing. While we're seeing a rise in construction of high end luxury homes and condos, what we really need is more family oriented affordable housing. Experts agree that if we want to solve the affordability crisis, we need to focus on building homes that reflect the real needs of Calgarians. Luxury homes or smaller units may be profitable, but they aren't what required to tackle the crisis. Claim 2: social housing and affordable housing are equally impactful. This claim is another common misconception. While both social housing and affordable housing play a crucial role in the housing ecosystem, they are not created equal. Social housing is a government owned and rent determined by tenants' income, usually around 25%. This provides a much needed safety net for low income families. In Calgary, there's a significant demand for social housing, as indicated by long waitlists. The reason for this is simple. Social housing ensures long term affordability and stability. On the other hand, affordable housing is typically based on the market value and often isn't truly affordable for the average person. For instance, if the average rent in Calgary is $2,000 a unit, considered affordable, might the rent be $1,500? While this might be cheaper than the market rate, it's still out of the reach of many. Just a few years ago, $1,500 a month for rent would have been considered expensive. That's why advocates argue that the government funds should be focused on building more sociable housing, not just lumping social and affordable housing into the same category. Since social housing is income based, it offers more security for those in need. Claim number 3: immigration is the main cause of housing crisis. Yes, Calgary has seen an increase in population due to immigration, but the notion that the immigration, the primary cause of housing crisis, is misleading. The housing crisis in Calgary exists well before the recent spike of immigration. In fact, even during the pandemic, when the immigration essentially came to a halt, we still saw rental prices rise and vacancies rates drop. This issue is much more complex than the simple pointing to immigration. It's a combination of supply and affordability, the types of homes being built. For instance, the influx of high end luxury homes does little to alleviate the need for affordable housing, which many of these newcomers and longtime residents require. Additionally, Calgary's booming economy has drawn to more people looking for jobs, which further matters the housing demand worse. While immigration does contribute to population growth, it's only one factor in a much larger equation. Claim number 4: short term rentals like Airbnb are eating up Calgary's housing supply. This claim has some truth to it, but it isn't the whole story. Short term rentals, particularly through the platforms like Airbnb, have certainly had an impact on the housing supply in Calgary. Before the pandemic, many landlords were converting their long term rental units into short term rentals to capitalize on the higher profits from tourists. For landlords, it's often more lucrative to rent out to a unit for a few nights at a higher rate than to commit to a long term lease. During a pandemic, with tourists at standstill, many of these units turned to the long term rental market. However, As tourism has picked up again, we're seeing more properties being pulled off the rental market and relisted as a short term accommodation. While Calgary has introduced new regulations around short term rentals, such as requiring landlords to register and display a permit number, enforcement has been difficult. Experts agree that short term rentals aren't the sole cause of housing crisis. They certainly don't help. They add to the pressure on the already limited supply of long term rental units. Claim number 5: government housing solutions are too expensive to fix the problem. It's easy to think that the government solution to housing crisis are too costly, but that's a narrow way to look at it. Many people assume building more social housing is simply too expensive, but experts argue the cost of not investing in social housing are actually much higher in the long run. Failing to provide adequate social housing can lead to a number of costly social issues, such as increased homelessness, higher healthcare costs, and more people ending up in the emergency services or even the justice system. All of these expenses are borne by the taxpayers. Comment below, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these. When you consider a ripple effect of not having enough affordable social housing, it becomes clear that government investment in housing is actually a more cost efficient solution. Social housing provides stability, dignity, and security for lower income families, which in turn reduces the need for costly emergency services. Claim number 6: there's too much red tape stopping new housing development. This is a claim that comes up frequently, and it is some merit. But the real issue isn't just about red tape. Yes, developers face hurdles when it comes to zoning laws and obtaining permits, and Calgary's urban sprawl means there isn't much undeveloped land left for large scale developments. But the bigger problem is that developers aren't always interested in building affordable housing. There's far more profit in luxury homes and high end homes, which means there's little incentive to focus on affordable housing. While zoning and permits can slow down the process, the main issue is developers are prioritizing projects that generate the most profit, which often means ignoring the affordable housing segment altogether. Claim number 7: not in my backyard, is a major problem stopping housing developments. The not in my backyard mentality does play a role in halting certain housing developments, especially those focused on low cost or affordable housing. Residents sometimes push back against new developments, citing concerns about their property values or potential changes to the character of their neighborhood. However, Calgary, not in my backyard syndrome, isn't a big of a roadblock as it is in other cities like Toronto, where single family homes dominate. Calgary has already embraced multifamily housing in many areas, which makes it easier to push forward with new developments. That say, resistance still exists, especially when it comes to building in more affluent neighborhoods. But overall, the big issue is getting developers to actually build affordable homes and address the real needs of Calgarians. While there are many claims about Calgary's housing crisis, the reality is that it's a complex issue and requires a multiple facet solution. Addressing it will take a combination of building right types of homes, expanding social housing, and ensuring the housing is affordable for all Calgarians. I hope this fact check has helped you clarify some of the common misconceptions. Comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.